The greatest thing about hunting for me is how beautiful the world is. And man, this was the ugliest field I've ever hunted, the ugliest tree I ever hunted in.
First time I really hunted with him, I thought, no way.
Yeah.
There's no possible way he's gonna sit in that deer stand all day long.
It didn't matter if you're getting on an airplane or sitting down for dinner. He wanted everything like he wanted it.
You are so much like your dad. When you were in the plane and you guys ran off the runway and your family,
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I didn't know much about it. It was the most violent crash he'd been in.
We bounced that plane and it went up in the air about 40 feet and he tried to get it back down. The landing gear on the right side collapsed and the plane went down on the wing, and so the plane started to turn like this. And I'm thinking, knowing what I know about race cars and airplanes and all that stuff, I'm thinking, man, we're gonna turn sideways and we're gonna get upside down. I slammed into that wall and we slid across the ground and come to a stop. And I took 5 steps, and that pain in my back from hitting that wall hit me and I went to the ground.
The house needs paint, grass needs mowing. Where's he at?
Hi, this is Hank. Sorry I missed your call. Leave me your name and your number and I'll get back to you.
He's gone fishing.
Hey, welcome to Off the Water with Hank Parker, and today I got a very, very special guest, and we're gonna be telling some stories. So please welcome my guest, Dale Earnhardt Jr. How about it, my buddy?
Man, it's good to be here. Yeah, thanks for asking me to come. Drove from just above Charlotte, North Carolina, and hadn't been down here in a long time. Hunted with you down here probably 25 years ago, and man, it's beautiful.
We figured out, I looked at your picture on your first deer, which you killed over at Franco's, which is 6 miles from here. And I think you were 14, maybe 15. 15 at the oldest. So 35 years ago. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I do that all the time. Been a little longer than 25 years. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But that's where you killed your first deer. Now, I heard you tell a story, you and Amy were talking about your dad putting the spikes so far apart that he had to push your feet. Where was that at?
That was in Alabama. He had, there was some club that he was part of, and we went down there a couple times. I remember going with him, and he had a stand up on top of this hill. He put me in a little field called the finger field because it's shaped like a finger. And he hunted up on top of the hill where I could see him. And one morning he took me with him to that stand and we climbed. This tree didn't have a limb in it all the way to the top, and it forked. And up there he had a stand and a 2x4 to lay the gun across or something, right? And way up in the tree. And we get to the bottom of this thing in the morning to try to climb it, and I start up it, and I'm like, Daddy, I can't get to the next peg. I mean, I couldn't get 5 feet up this tree because the pegs are so far apart. He didn't want to sit there. You know, he made them pegs as far apart as he could because he didn't want to sit there and screw them all in. You know, if he could skip a couple pegs, screwing them in, he was going to do it. And you know him, if it was up to him, especially with a gun hunt, he was going to put the tree stand as high as he could.
High as it
ridiculous. Yeah, ridiculous. And so I got a picture of him. He must be 35 foot in the air in this one pine tree. But we climb up this tree, and he had to shove my sole of my foot up to the next peg. I don't know how we got out of there. But we went up in that tree and sat there all morning. And this big giant field, probably about, we could see to the other tree line, was probably about 250 yards. And it had been cleared, and it was full of just all these hedges that they just mashed all that cut into these little piles. And it was just an ugly field, you know. And the greatest thing about hunting for me is how beautiful the world is, right? And you get out and sit there, climb in a tree stand at dark, and the sun comes up, and it just reveals how beautiful the scene is. And man, this was the ugliest field I've ever hunted, the ugliest tree I ever hunted in. And but I killed it. You know how, this is the other thing about him. We're sitting there, and I mean, there's a lot to look at. This is a big old field. I'm trying to see if I see some movement or something. And I don't have my eye trained to what deer movement looks like. You know, that's something that you kind of acquire. And sure enough, he sees a doe, and I'm looking, and I mean, it took me 5 minutes to find this thing in this field out here. And he's like, it's right there, right there. I'm like, I don't see. I'm looking, and it's this tiny doe, and he's like, go ahead, get your gun ready. And I set it up there and shot it. And I ain't even. It's kind of one of them deals where the ball comes at you and you swing the bat and you close your eyes and you don't know where it went. You know, you hit the ball, but you ain't sure whether it went left or right or whatever. And I fired the gun, and he is thrilled, over the moon. Because I don't know what happened. I don't know if it ran or what. I just shot, and that was that. And he's like, man, it dropped right where it was standing. You got it right through the heart. Awesome shot. And he was as happier than if he'd shot the deer himself. But that was fun. It took me a while to understand why, I love to deer hunt now. And I got my own place, and I enjoy going, and the camaraderie, and I love everything about it. I love the prep, the build up. I love the camp. I love the town. I love eating lunch out in town. I love all of it, right? And it took me a while to appreciate that and understand why he wanted to go so much. But it was, I've got some great memories going hunting with him, even though we didn't really get to go too often. I'd beg him to take me when he would go, and every now and then I'd get the chance.
When we go to the Piloncillo, it wasn't about hurry up and get back to camp. It wasn't about anything except hunt from daylight to dark.
Dude.
I mean, it was intense.
Yeah. We would, and I know you know this, but he would put me in a deer stand, and he'd run off and go to his. So I had to get in mine early so he could get in his stand before the sun come up, and that was fine. But then when it come time at the end of the afternoon, we'd hunt in the afternoon, and when it's getting dark, and I would sit there in the pitch black waiting on him. And he hunted until the absolute last possible moment. And there were times when I'm sitting in that stand and I know he can't possibly see nothing. And what is he even going to do if there is a deer out there in front of me? He ain't going to be able to really know what he's looking at, right? But he would sit in that stand well beyond the reasonable light, right? Yeah. And then he comes to get me. And I'm sitting in there, and there's all kinds of things crawling around. 14, 13-year-old, in the middle of some state I ain't never been in before, in some tree in the wilderness, wondering, dang, man, when's he coming? And you get so dang happy when you saw that little flashlight start bobbing through the woods down there. You're like, oh, here he comes.
He sat in the tree all day. The first time he came down here, I put him in a ladder stand, and I showed him the ladder stand, and he said, I'll go down there. I'll go down. So we can put up I don't need any bright eyes. I know where it's at. I can find it. I said, well, I can help you. I don't need no help. I said, well, what time you want to come out and have lunch? I ain't coming out. I said, first time I'd really hunted with him, I thought, no way. He's ADD. There's no possible way he's going to sit in that deer stand all day long. And so he said, I'll come out at dark. And I thought, okay. So about 2 o'clock that afternoon, I thought, I wonder if something's wrong. Because, he should, of course, we didn't have phones. And so I snuck around where I could get a view. He saw me. He got so mad.
I bet.
Oh, Lord, he got mad. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm sneaking where I can just see if he's still sitting in that stand. He saw me. He had eyes like nobody else
right.
had.
Yeah.
Nobody. You talking about him seeing that deer?
Yeah.
He could see him. When he'd ride you around the farm,
yeah,
he could find them deer. He said, you see that deer over there? You don't see that deer?
Yeah.
No, I don't see that deer.
Yeah.
I got a trained eye.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I don't see that. You don't see that deer? Come on, Parker. And he'd point them out. There's nothing right behind it. Watch it. You'll see his ear move.
Yeah. I know. It's driving me crazy.
But he loved that. He'd do it to everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody could see those deer like he could see them. And we'd be blood trailing.
Too. Golly.
There's nobody. He said, Parker, you don't see that blood?
Tiny little
and
speck.
there'd be a speck. I'd have to walk up about look at it with a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
And, you don't see that blood? No, I don't see that blood. By golly, he saw it.
Yeah.
And I think that helped him racing.
Yeah.
I think he had eyes like an eagle, man.
He did.
He could see.
I agree. Yeah.
And he loved it. He absolutely loved it. But it would drive him crazy now if you get a bunch of guys out there trying to track down a deer and somebody get in front of him.
Oh,
yeah. Get in front of Big E's running the show now. Don't be getting in front of him.
Yeah. Yeah, that was him. He was always, it didn't matter if you're getting on an airplane or sitting down for dinner. You sit here, you sit here, you sit here, you sit here. He wanted everything like he wanted it. Everybody where he wanted them. Yeah.
He invited me to go elk hunting with him at Silver City in September before the Daytona race, and so he had already told Mike where he wanted everybody in the tent. And he said, "I want you to put so and so here and here and here and here and here, and you and I'll stay in this tent." So I put my sleeping bag where I wanted it in the tent where he wanted his sleeping bag. He said, "What is this?" I said, "That's where I'm sleeping. You No. Mike, I said, "It don't matter about Mike. I'm sleeping right there. You go sleep." I did it. I wouldn't move. He said, "You gonna move it?" I said, "No, I ain't moving. I'm gonna stay right there." And you gonna stay right there. And we sat in that tent and talked and talked and talked. We were like two little Boy Scouts. And after he finally got used to the fact that I wasn't gonna move,
Yeah.
he kind of
Y'all were very similar. Yeah.
I never, and I think, I told you earlier, before we turned the cameras on, when we went to the Piloncea, we had 15 members, and every member there treated him like Dale Earnhardt, the deer hunter, as if he had no other credentials. He loved that.
Yeah.
And that was what was so special about that place to him. And then when we sat around the campfire at night, which he loved to do, it wasn't about Dale entertain us, tell us about your racing story.
Right.
He never talked about
Yeah.
it. He talked about, "Man, you wouldn't believe that bobcat I saw today. That thing come off that hill." And we interacted. And it wasn't about Forrest Wood, the Ranger boat builder. It wasn't about Ray Scott, the founder of Bath. It was about a bunch of deer hunters sitting around the campfire.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And that's what he loved. You know how it is now, probably as much or more than he did. Everybody wanted a piece of him. I want a picture. How about sign this for me? I mean, and so I told him when he first came in, we had a guy in the club, Doc Shelton, and I told Doc, Doc said, "I want to get a picture with Earnhardt when I kill my deer." I said, "Don't do that. Don't do that. Let him be Dale Earnhardt, the deer hunter, not Dale Earnhardt, the celebrity.
Yeah.
Let him be the deer hunter." And everybody honored that.
Yeah.
And he ate that up. He ate that up. Nobody talked racing. Nobody talked about where you're going, what's your schedule.
Yep.
None of that. It was all about deer hunting, and he loved it. And of course, Ray Scott was there. He was a celebrity. Forrest Wood was a legend, and your dad respected Forrest so much, and that was really awesome. But nobody ever asked him for an autograph or a photograph. So there are no photographs of your dad except with his deer.
Yeah.
With nobody. The Hank Jones took that.
Yeah.
Not even Richard, not Donnie, not Dale, nobody.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It's good.
They just treated him, Dale Earnhardt, the deer hunter. And
Yeah.
he is a heck of a deer hunter.
Yeah.
He is a heck of a deer hunter.
I thought so.
He loved it.
Yeah.
When we first got the Piloncea, Ray Scott called me and he said, "Hank-O, I want you to get in our deer club." I said, "Tell me about it." He said, "We've got 15,000 acres and there's going to be 10 members. He gave me the price, and I said, "God, Ray, I can't afford that. What if we had 15 members and I could afford it?" He said, "Well, can you get the other 5? I said, "I think so." So I called your dad. I said, "Hey, I need 5 guys to join the best deer club in the world." He said, "You got it." And he said, "How much is it?" And I told him. He said, "Ooh," like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
All right, let me call Richard. So he called me back about an hour later. He said, "All right, we got it." He said, "I got Donnie, I got Tommy Teague, I got Mike, I got Richard, I got myself." He said, "If we need one more, we can get Hank Jones." So we had one fallout, so Hank came in. So now we had the 15 guys. So your dad calls me and he says, "Hey, tell me about them big deer you seen out there at that ranch." I said, I never seen the ranch. He said, what? You sucked me in on this? He said, oh, no, no, no. I said, Dale, I done paid your money. I said, Ray Scott is an honest man. He's told me what's there. I promise you it's going to be good. He said, oh, no, 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 no. I ain't sending you no money. You ain't never seen that place and you pull me in on this? I ain't going to do that. And I thought, oh, Lord, I'm broke. Man, I done put up all their money, $6,500 a piece for 6 guys.
Yeah.
And I needed that money back. He said, I ain't doing it. I'm going to tell you right now, Parker, you lied to me. I said, I never lied to you. He said, you told me about all these big deer you saw. I said, I didn't tell you about big deer I saw. I said, do you want to join a club with the biggest deer in all of Texas? And he said, well, I'm thinking you've been there and you've seen it and you knew it firsthand. Now you're telling me it's all secondhand information and you asking me to send you a check for $31,000. He said, I ain't doing it. I said, oh, Lord, what am I going to do? He said, I'll tell you what to do. He said, let's go out there. Can you set that up? I said, yeah, I can set that up. So I called, and there was a guy named Gene Naquin. So Mike Collier flew us to Cotulla, to the airport. Gene Naquin picked us up. We're riding around the Suburban. And I'd never been to South Texas in my life either. And your dad said, there ain't no trees. There ain't no trees. There ain't no deer out here. They don't have a place to live. And Gene's driving that Suburban. He said, well, those are mesquite trees. And your dad said, that ain't a tree, that's a bush. He said, no, Parker, no. You can get my money. I'm gonna tell you right now, you done wasted my time. I ain't doing this. I said, Dale, man, they tell me these big days. He said, well, where are they gonna be? I mean, look at this desert. There ain't a bunch of bushes. So we ride around and Gene's up there just driving. And finally he says, y'all wanna see some deer? Dale said, I reckon we do. We've been riding around for 60 miles and I ain't seen one yet. He said, well, I'm gonna show you how it works. So we pulled in this little place and he said, now y'all would just call this roads. We call them senderos. And he said, this is a east and west and this is a north and south. And if we come in here and we got a south wind, then we don't bait to the north. If we come in here and we got a west wind, we don't bait to the east. We just bait these 3. We parked the truck right here. And your dad said, park the truck? He said, yeah, we hunt out of the truck. He punched me. He said, you ain't getting my money. I ain't doing this. He said, yeah. He said, and I'll show you how it works. We got these feeders on the front of the truck. We got here, put out corn. He said, I'm going to just feed these 2 senderos. And fed them. And your dad's sitting there saying, And I'm thinking, I've done a dumb thing, man. I'm broke. I mean, this is going to wipe me out. I'm going to lose $36,000. And he said, you ain't getting my money. So we're sitting there, and your dad's looking at me like, all right, I'm ready to go. And the biggest deer your dad had ever killed at that time, probably 120 inches.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was about where I was at. It was about a 160 walks out. And then another one about 150. And then about 5 more all in the way. And he punched me, oh, look at that. I'm in, we're in. Where'd I write that check? And that's how we got set up. So, and the first time we went, he brought his radios. And he gave Donnie a radio, Mike a radio, myself a radio, Richard a radio. And we were all talking to each other. And we were like little kids. I mean, like little children. Earnhardt said, you ain't gonna believe what I got in front of me. I mean, I'm in Jurassic Park. I mean, this is crazy. You ain't gonna believe it all.
That's crazy.
It blew his mind.
Yeah.
It blew my mind.
That's funny.
It was so awesome. It was so awesome. And he loved it. He absolutely loved it.
I bet he too appreciated your stature in the industry and your celebrity as well. Like, he didn't have to shoulder all of that. And I bet he wouldn't never admit that to you, but
no, he wouldn't.
He probably appreciated that when he was with you, and especially in a hunting or fishing setting, that he knew he wasn't the big dog in the boat. You know what I mean? And that he probably appreciated how he kind of felt less like, he was being propped up on a podium, I think that's why he appreciated you so much. And y'all were so similar, different people, different values and so forth. But in terms of, I don't know, I always felt like y'all had a lot in common in terms of what your end agenda was, what your end goal was. And y'all, I guess that's why y'all got along so well.
Hey guys, this video is brought to you by our partners, Mossy Oak. Now, Mossy Oak is more than just a camouflage brand. They have land, seed, and fishing apparel. Now, some of the branches include Mossy Oak Biologic, Mossy Oak Native Nurseries, and Mossy Oak Properties. For more information, you can check out the description below. All those links are there. And now, let's get back to the video.
When he invited me to go with him to Silver City out there, elk hunting, did you ever go?
I never did.
It was a treat, and Turl Shelley, he loved Turl Shelley. Turl Shelley is a real cowboy. I mean, he's one of these guys that has no fear, can rope cattle, and there'd be a big tree falling down across the trail, and Turl would rope it and tie it to his saddle horn and drag it out of the way, you know. I mean, it's just, your dad appreciated that.
Yeah, I bet.
And I don't have a lot of fear. I'm like your dad. I'd get 45 feet in a tree, no safety harness, and sit on a rotten board. I mean, just stupid things, really, to be honest. But I don't have a lot of fear. And when we rode in there on horseback, it's about a 7 or 8 mile rough terrain horse ride to get to where the camp was. And so there is one section that if you fall off and it's just wide enough for your horse to go down the trail, if you fall off, it's about a mile to the bottom of the canyon. And it's extremely intimidating. And I mean, I actually took my foot out of the stirrup and put both feet, because you could jump on this side and you wouldn't fall about 50 yards.
Yeah.
And we rode in there, and your dad, he had them fly me out there he had a Brazilian. You remember that old plane?
Yeah.
Well, that's how he flew me out there by myself on that Brazilian while he raced Rockingham. And so we all rode in there to set up camp. So I asked Turl Shelley, I said, when will Dale get here? He said, he'll be here when we wake up in the morning. Now, he's racing Rockingham, and then he's going to fly out there. And I said, he ain't going to ride that trail. Is there a different way in here? Is he going? He said, oh, no, but one way. I said, he'll ride that trail in the dark? He said, oh, yeah. By himself, he'll ride that trail in the black dark, where if you fall, you're a dead man. I mean, you ain't got a chance. And it ain't but that wide. He said, oh yeah, he does it all the time. He's done it every year. He comes in on Sunday night, he races. So he's gonna race Rockingham, and then he's gonna ride in there, and it's pouring rain. I thought, he'll not be here. When we wake up in the morning, he won't be here. He was there. He rode that trail. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't know of any other human being in the world that have the nerve to do that. It's crazy. And he act like it wasn't nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, he was really the man.
Yeah.
He really was. And a lot of people, the most impressive thing that he ever did was ride that trail in. I'd have never done that.
Yeah.
And as much as I wanted to elk hunt, and as tough as I think I am, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. No, I hear you. He, not in that scenario, but I would see him every now and then do things that he knew nobody else in the group wanted to do, only to show that he was willing to do it. He enjoyed, I think, proving his, his fearlessness, and how confident he was that he, this is no problem. It's no big deal. I can do this.
Yeah. I told him I got a bobcat mounted up there, and I told him, your dad shot that bobcat. And when I got over there, he had Hank Jr. digging in the hole. The bobcat was wounded in the hole. He had Hank Jr. in there trying to dig him out. I got Hank out there, he'll kill you.
Hank, your son?
Oh, man, ain't nothing but a little bobcat.
Oh, my gosh.
That would have ate him up. He got her head first,
Holy cow.
Scared me to death, man. What are you doing? But that was him. Hey, he had no fear. He had no fear. The only thing he didn't like, he would not cut up in that airplane.
Yeah.
He didn't cut up in that airplane. Occasionally he'd do something crazy, but not very often. And I know I don't want to bring up bad memories, but I know we lost Greg Biffle in the plane crash. And when you were in the plane and you guys ran off the runway and your family, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I didn't know much about it. And I asked Hank Jr., I called Hank Jr., and he had talked to you, and he said, Dale Jr. told me it was the most violent crash he'd been in. Was it?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about it.
I will. Yeah, I'll tell you all about it. So, there's a lot there. First off, I had a great airplane, a really, really great airplane. And I have a full-time mechanic, and across from my hangar is a Cessna service center. So like we're pretty buttoned up. I had 2 great pilots, good guys, good dudes, and trusted them. Still do. But over the course of operating an airplane for years, I had sort of indirectly encouraged us to cut some corners on costs. If we could go into this airport besides this one because the landing fees or taxi fees were less, or if we'd fill up on our fuel instead of flying to one leg and then filling up and flying, because the fuel costs more there, we just fill up at our place. And there were all these things that we just kind of had gotten in the habit of doing that we didn't need to be doing, didn't have to do, just to save a little money.
Yeah.
And what I learned, I think, after all of that was that, man, when you're flying and you start stacking and layering these little insignificant things that you're doing, cutting corners for cost, if it's 300-foot ceilings, we'll be okay. And then you're flying at night, and then you're landing on a short runway, so you got to be perfect. You got to get it right. You're doing 3, 4, 5 things, making it more difficult, more challenging, and you're messing with your odds. And so I didn't really realize I was taking advantage of the situation until we got ourselves in a spot that we couldn't get out of. And the plane was going to take Amy to Texas after it dropped me off in Bristol. There's a perfectly fine airport in Bristol with a long runway.
Yeah.
But we decided to go to this other one because it was a little cheaper to get into, shorter runway, down in a valley, closer to the racetrack, all these silly things that I should have never considered or worried about. And on this particular flight, which is common for our guys, they're rated for the airplane to be able to fly it, and they'll swap seats. They'll swap legs, so my A pilot will fly, and then the B pilot will fly in the left seat as a captain. And that's common if your guys are rated properly for that. And so I didn't have my A guy in the captain's chair, but that wasn't never, shouldn't have been an issue. But I will say, like, it wasn't he didn't do anything wrong. I put him in a bad spot. As an owner of that airplane, an operator of that airplane, I take full responsibility for putting him in a spot where he was heavy, he had a short runway, and he had some tough terrain to get down quick in the hills of Bristol, Tennessee. And I just, those are all decisions that come from the top. And so we end up getting in there a little hot, and he's trying to get down and get slowed down. And we bounced the plane, meaning that instead of kind of coming in and touching down and then nose down, it come in flat and bounced. And, this was, again, I mean, I take a lot of credit for all the things that went wrong that day. I don't want to put any responsibility on no one.
Yeah.
Because it's decisions that ultimately come down to the person who owns the airplane. We had gotten so comfortable that, man, we would take off and land not even buckled up in this plane. I was sitting there probably 5 miles out, 10 miles out, 15 minutes from landing that plane. And Isla, we only had Isla at the time. Isla's sitting on Amy.
How old was she?
She's probably 2.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked to her about it. She don't remember, we're not sure when we want to have that conversation with her, but eventually one day she's sitting on Amy's lap, not buckled in or nothing. And we're 15 minutes or so from landing, and she started fussing a little bit. And I said, here, just let her put her on my lap, which I'm, fate, just a random, I put her on my lap and I'm holding her. And we bounced that plane off the runway, and I've still got her on my lap. I ain't buckled in either. And we bounced that plane, and it went up in the air about 40 feet, and he tried to get it back down. And the second bounce just broke the landing gear on the right side and damaged the sensor. So
you knew you were in trouble. You knew.
Yeah. The second bounce broke some stuff on the landing gear, and the plane, we had the thrusters out trying to slow it down. We decided at that moment that we were going to try to go around, at least get back up in the air. We run out of runway. And when we went to go full throttle on the airplane, the landing gear, with the sensors and the damage done to the landing gear, the plane would not allow the motors to spool up. And so,
Guardian mode.
He went into full throttle and nothing happened. It's sitting there idling 40 foot across the top, right across. So you got to make a decision. We're going to put the plane down. We're going to run out of runway, but we're getting it on the ground. So they put it on the ground. They hollered, hang on. They put it on the ground. And when they put it on the ground, it hit so hard, all the blinds shut. And so you got no understanding of where the horizon is. Whether you're right side up or upside down, you don't know. And so all the dang blinds shut when it hit the ground the last time. And I've been in race cars and spun around, flipped upside down. And so I'm sort of I'm not focusing on this, but I can feel how we're headed, where we're headed, and what direction we're going in. And I can feel whether we're tilted and all that stuff. I can feel this happening. And so I got a hold of Isla, and with the landing gear on the right side collapsed, and the plane went down on the wing and drugged the wing and started to turn. We're still probably going 80 mile an hour. So the plane started to turn like this, and I'm thinking, knowing what I know about race cars and airplanes and all that stuff, I'm thinking, man, we're going to turn sideways and we're going to get up. We're going to get upside down. We're full of fuel, slam full. But that thing turned sideways and went off the runway. And on the other side of the runway was a creek, and there's about 6 foot bank down to the bottom of that creek. And it was probably about 15, 20 foot wide. And it skipped right across that, but it hit the other side of that creek pretty hard. And me and Isla went into the wall in front of us, wide open.
Yeah.
And as soon as we hit, I kind of turned my whole body and I landed into that wall with my back here. And it was bruised from shoulder to my ass. It was red, black blood bruised. It was bad. But I slammed into that wall, and we slid across the ground and come to a stop. And man, this plane is a pretty sizable interior, and when we come to a stop and I looked around, I couldn't even recognize it. Every panel, ceiling, everything was not where it was supposed to be. It's like somebody come in there and gutted it. And I'm looking for Amy, and she's laying on the floor. And so I'm hollering for her if she's okay, and she gets up. I'm like, you all right? She's like, yeah. And I start looking at Isla. And so I don't know, when I hit that wall, I know I hit it, but I don't know what I squeezed her or hurt her or anything, right? So I'm looking at Isla. She's crying, but she got everything. Everything looks like it's headed in the right direction. And I'm looking, that's really like 90% of my thought was like, is Isla hurt? Have I hurt her? What happened? She had a rug burn on her arm. She had her arm wrapped around me. When we went into that wall, it rubbed that carpet on the side of the plane, on the interior, all the way into that wall. That's how fast we went into that wall. It gave her a big burn on her. That's all she had. She had no bruises or nothing.
Wow.
And so I handed her to Amy, and I said, Amy, check her out. I was like, keep looking at her. I think I've looked at her. You look at her. I'm going to get it. I'm going to go to the back and open up the hatch.
You thinking about the fuel at all?
No, I'm going to the back of this plane to open up the window, the back.
The door.
The plane's kind of sitting on this angle like this. And I was like, I ain't even worrying with that front door. I'm going to go to this back door and open it up. We can get up out of there that way. I go back there and I'm turning this handle, and it ain't doing crap. And there's some thick black smoke coming out of the toilet. And so it's sooty, dark. And I look up front, and the two pilots is up there in the seat just flipping switches and flipping and doing. And they have a thing in their mind, like a plan. They got a thing. They got a list of things, and they have to all do them. And, I've working with pilots, and ever since this happened, I've learned as much as I possibly can. And I've talked to my guys that I experienced this crash with, and they were like, when that happens, we know we got a thing we do. We got to set off the fire extinguishers. We got to turn this off. We got to do this, and do this. And so I just looked up there and I was like, man, I can't believe they're not coming back here getting us, let's get out of here, right?
Yeah.
But they were up there flipping switches. And I hollered at them. I said, hey, y'all, it's smoke coming out of this toilet. Let's go. It's on fire back here. So my B pilot, which was flying the plane that day, he come back there with me. And I thought maybe I just wasn't doing something right with that door, but he couldn't open it either. A chain link fence we went through at some point was wrapped around the back of the plane and wasn't allowing us to get that door open. So on the way out now is the front door, I think. And my other pilot is trying to open it up, and it won't open.
Yeah.
It won't. And he come back to us, and he's like, I can't get that door. Let's try this. I'm like, we can't get this door. And it's getting full of smoke in there.
Yeah, that's ain't good.
And Amy looks at him and says, try that again. Just try it again, the front door. And went up there and kicked it, and it opened up like a stove door about a quarter. And so we could climb up and out that way.
God.
It was like climbing out of a damn kitchen stove.
Wow.
And so we get it open, and one pilot climbs out, and he's out there on the ground, and I grabbed Isla and I handed him to Isla. And then I climbed out, and this was a kind of a tricky moment. So we're all in a bit of shock. I'm still like, my mind is dominated by, is Isla hurt? Because I don't know. Like we don't know whether she got a broke arm, whether she got a head injury or nothing. We don't know nothing. And it's dominating my mind that I've gotten this little girl hurt in this plane. And as soon as I handed her to him, I wanted to get out of the plane and him give her right back to me.
Mm-hmm.
But he took off running away from the plane because the whole ground was on fire. And so I got out of the plane and I took about 5 steps toward him to chase him down because I wasn't mad at him, but I was like getting angry. Like I wanted my kid and I wanted to. And then I turned around and then got Amy out. Next pilot, we got the dog out. We had Gus with us. And we got everybody out. And I was the last one standing at the plane, and I looked down on the ground, and it was like a carpet of fire. The fire was like this tall. And the short grass, it was the strangest thing. It was just kind of like a carpet of fire across the ground. And the back of the plane was really lit up. And I took 5 steps, and that pain in my back from hitting that wall hit me, and I went to the ground. And the next thing I know, there's about 5 or 6 people on top of me trying to help me and get me in the ambulance. And then, I was running on adrenaline, hadn't felt a thing. And as soon as everybody was out and I started to move from that plane, all of a sudden it felt like somebody shot me with a gun
Wow.
in my back. I fell down on the ground and laid there. I couldn't move. And I was like, I think my back's broke. You know, they're like trying to drag me away from the plane, or we got to get out of here. It's on fire, might explode, all that stuff. I'm like, man, I can't move. My back is broke. And they got me in an ambulance somehow. And I'm in this ambulance. It's starting to move. And I'm the only one in there. And there was a guy sitting in the back with me, paramedic. And I was like, man, I have a wife and a daughter, and they are somewhere. He's like, they're in the other ambulance. I said, I really, really need to know if my daughter's okay. I was like, I need to really know. I can't wait another minute. And he's like, I ain't supposed to do this, but I'm gonna call. I know the person in that other ambulance. So he called him on the phone, and I got to talk to Amy and learn, you know, that they had Isla and she was fine. And that was really, really tough. And so that's kind of the dominating thought now every time you get in an airplane with your kid is, you know, you aren't giving them a choice to get in that thing or not. You know, you got to think, am I being selfish because I want to go on this trip? Is this something that they would do if they had an opportunity to raise their hand and say, I don't want to go? You know, and so we made a lot of mistakes and got careless, and we got lucky that day. I sat down with a pilot that I knew, that Joey Meyer, that flew with my dad forever. You'd met Joey.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down with Joey and I said, Joey, help me figure this out. I got to work. I got to go back in a plane. I got to get back in a plane. I got to fly. And he's like, man, y'all, there were 3 or 4 things that there were 3 or 4 things you did before you ever got on that plane that if you didn't do, your odds are hundreds of times better. And he said, you got to set some protocols in place, and you can't never cross that line. And so we really did. Like, I knew I was going to fly again. I knew I was going to own another airplane. I knew I was going to go back to work. And so we set protocols going forward where we don't do instrument landings. If if it ain't a visual landing, we're not flying that day. I won't leave my airport if I can't get back in it. If we need to turn around and come right back. I'm not flying somewhere where the ceiling's below 700 feet. That's very aggressive. Like my pilots will tell you, I can land at 300 feet, no problem.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. I ain't doing it.
Yeah.
I
You don't need to.
I don't want it.
Smart. That's good.
I've lived my life, and I'm in a spot where I can tell them, no, I'm not going to make it today.
You know, your dad never experienced that anywhere close to that.
Yeah.
But he was on the phone with Kawicki. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. They were talking back and forth. They had had enough fuel to go to Bristol, but they had to go to Knoxville to sign autographs at a card signing deal. And so when they at this particular airport, they needed a fuel truck, from what I understand, to fuel the planes. And the fuel truck was not there because they were late getting there and late going to Bristol. And Kawicki's pilot had talked to Mike, your dad's pilot, and they were short on fuel. And they heard that whole thing. And I could tell a difference in the atmosphere on your dad's plane after that.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
He had a new respect.
Yeah.
And
I feel the same way. I think the world of the 2 pilots that were on that plane with me today. I still am in communication with one of them. The other I could call anytime I wanted and talk to them. They're 2 great men, and nothing will change my mind of how I feel about the decisions that were made, that I made, the systems that I had in place weren't. And I'm not a pilot. I'm not an expert about aviation of any kind. But I still allowed and requested, for us to try to do what we could to make this more affordable. And you can't do it that way. not in aviation.
Yeah.
And so I learned a
I had
thousand.
no idea. The world didn't know it was that bad.
Yeah.
Everybody just let Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s plane ran off the runway. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking it was a little simple
No,
running off
it was
into the grass. I had
scary.
no earthly idea.
It was terrifying. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
And
That is-
I've been ready. I mean, we could get as deep as you wanted to get. I have been ready. If my time comes, I am ready.
Are you?
I
You
know.
know Jesus.
Yes, sir. I'm ready.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And so I feel like that, I feel like that the way I've lived my life and the way I've, especially as a race car driver, where you're taking your own life in your hands every time you get behind the
Oh
wheel.
yeah, absolutely.
I just decided to look at it this way. Like, I feel like that when I was born, my story was written, and like God knows what the plan is for me, right? And everybody has a different way of looking at things, but this is the way I look at it. Like my story is written, and so I can make choices to affect different things in my day to day, but in the end, I believe that the ultimate, the day that I leave this earth, however that's supposed to happen has already been determined. And it's he knows what that is, and so that gives me peace, because then I can go about taking the risks I need to take in a race car or doing whatever I need to do. But so I'm ready. But with all that said, once I had kids, I wanted to try to drag it out as long as I could. You know what I mean?
Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to go down.
Yeah.
Give me another day or two. Yeah.
And so, So I learned, again, I'll say it, I can't say it enough. I learned a lot of lessons and things that I needed to do differently. I talked to my boss at the time, Rick Hendrick. Well, he wasn't my boss at the time, but he's like a father figure
He's
to me.
Awesome, man. I love Rick Hendrick.
He's been through some similar experiences in planes and dealt with some very tragic things as well. So he told me about how to set protocols and set limitations. Just stick and adhere to them, right? Don't push the issue because, man, I need to get to that destination. There's something happening there I can't miss. Or the weather's just a little worse than I prefer, so we'll push through because the pilot said it's okay. You got to set these personal limits and stick to them, and that will give you the peace of mind as well. I also learned a lot about flying. I did everything I could to feel like I had a little more understanding of what I was in control of, except for flying a plane myself. Yeah. And so those are some things I did. It was Amy, on the other hand, didn't get to do all those things. We talked about it, and she's like, we got like 6 months down the road, and I'm back in an airplane flying, going to races and doing. And it was uncomfortable, and still is today at times. But she was still struggling, and I said, honey, what do you think is going to get you comfortable or get you in a place where you feel better? And she's like, man, you race cars, and y'all go out on the track and you flip down the back straightaway at Daytona or Talladega. And the first thing you do is come in the garage and want to get this backup car out and go again. She's like, you've done that your whole life. And she's right. Like once I figured out Isla was okay, my mind went right to the financials, the right, like your mind starts thinking about, all right, what does this affect? How does this change? Once you're realizing that physically everything is good, you start thinking about, okay, what's this mean? Am I going to do my job this weekend as a broadcaster, and then we're going to do the Bristol race? Should I do it? Should I not do it? What are my bosses going to say? And so you just start thinking about all those things, but she's right. We wreck race cars and we do things that we should get out and go, I'm never doing that again. I ain't getting back in that, not after it slipped down the straightaway like that.
There have been a few people that have been in that situation, where they wreck a race car and they just can't get their nerve
back in it. Yeah.
They just,
Yeah.
And I think Carl Edwards saw the light. Carl
Yeah.
said, man, we're taking chances. I don't want to do that anymore.
Sure.
I'm not in that position. And
Yeah.
hey, I'm hanging it up. And I mean, it's kind of the peak of his career.
On the flip side of that, I owned a Bell helicopter. I bought it from Tony Stewart. Great helicopter. And Your
dad hated them.
Yeah.
He hated them.
Yeah. I'm flying that thing. I'd take it to Darlington and Martinsville and do a couple other things with it. And it was fine. No problem. Woke up one morning, nothing had happened, no reason. I woke up one morning and absolutely was no way in heck going to get back on that thing.
Good.
Nothing had happened. Like there was nothing I saw, read, nothing no one told me. I just woke up one day and I said, I'm selling it. I'm never getting in a helicopter again. And I don't know why that happened, but I'll do that. You know, I'll get in an airplane.
Helicopters are bad. Your dad hated them.
Yeah.
He hated them. Now, he'd fly in them, but he hated them.
Yeah.
They're scary.
This episode is brought to you by ProGuide Batteries. Now, ProGuide Batteries has been in business for over 30 years and Hank's favorite choice of lithium-ion battery for 4. ProGuide Batteries has blown Hank's expectations out of the water, so much so that it is the only lithium-ion battery that Hank uses. So you can go check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
All right, let's shift gears. Let's
Shift
get
gears
on
a little bit.
I had no idea that was a crash. I just thought you guys ran off the runway into the grass, you know, and maybe spun around. I had no earthly idea. And then it's amazing. But now we're going to get on a much lighter side. But I'm going to talk about a crash. I raced my late model car at Concord, and Concord was an awesome racetrack. And you say, okay, what was your dad thinking? You and Hank Jr., y'all just absolutely made sport of me. And what in the world was he thinking to go out there and try to get in a bush race? Well, I have done a lot of things in my lifetime. I get a big thrill out of elk hunting, a bugling elk coming in. That's awesome. And but I've never done anything as exhilarating and as thrilling is stepping on that throttle.
Yeah.
I mean, Concord was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, a little
triangle.
And we ran those late models, and I ran the biggest carburetor I could find, you know, because it was unlimited for late model. And I ran that big 1100 Dominator, and you come off when you had new tires. Now, when you came off turn 1, it was tight, and you're probably doing 60 miles an hour at the best, but you dove into 3 at about 140, 150, and I mean, you lit it up down that back. Nothing thrilled me like, I loved it, man. I said, I gotta have more. So you automatically think, if 150 is exciting, what would 200 be? I mean, I gotta go race. I wanna go race. So I thought, man, I wanna race Charlotte. So they had the Richard Petty driving experience over there. So I thought, well, I'll go drive. And Rodney Combs was working with Petty on that deal. And so Rodney kind of took a little wedge out of the car and lightened it up where it wasn't pushing so bad, where you could actually drive it a little bit and say, don't you ever tell this, because I'd get in a lot of trouble. But I realized I wasn't ready for Humpy's bump.
Yeah.
That thing freaked me out.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get up, and I wasn't anywhere near, and I knew that I wasn't anywhere near race speed for a bush car.
Right.
But I was getting closer, and man, I didn't know how to navigate that bump.
Yeah, I wrecked on that bump.
That thing. And so I said, I ain't ready for Charlotte. So your dad, and I don't even know if you know this or not, but your dad went to Richmond and missed the race. He didn't make the race. He didn't make the bush race. He was embarrassed.
Yeah.
Man, I mean it. So he comes back and Tony and they're all having a fit. His cars are too heavy. And Kenny Wallace sat on the pole at that race that your dad didn't make. And when that race was over, your dad bought that car. He bought Kenny's car, and it was a Pontiac. They changed the nose on it. And so your dad took that car and won. About 5 or 6 races later, he won. And I told him, I said, I want that car. And he said, you ain't getting that car. I said, I want that car. So I found out from Kenny what he paid for it, and so I offered him a little more, and I bought that car. And so I want to take that car, and so we go to Martinsville. And so Harry Gant's there, and your dad's there, and Stevie Reeves is there. And so I go with the car I bought from your dad. And it's funny, I'll tell you a story on that. And I could run that car pretty good, but I'd spin out. I spun that thing out 5 times, never hit a thing. But coming off of 2, I'd spin it out. And I didn't really know what in the world. And I made some really good laps. Oh, Harry Gant told, he had Leo Cox was his car owner. He's sitting out there with Leo. He said, "Don't you look at her? That's that fisherman running that car." He said, "That ain't," and it was painted up. It was 3. It was fully decaled for your dad.
Oh.
And so old Leo said, "That ain't that fisherman. That's Earnhardt." And about the 3rd lap, I looped it. He said, "No, it's that fisherman." I looped that thing 5 different times. So when I came in, I didn't know anything about steering boxes. You know, I had ran that late model car, and we rigged that late model car and hamped in. I didn't have a choice in steering boxes. They just put in there. So I didn't know anything about steering ratio and steering boxes. Well, your dad ran the steering box that you didn't turn the steering wheel that far, you know, and it turned. Man, I had one where you wheeled it. So that was my problem, and I didn't realize that. But anyway, there were some guys there that I'd done spun that car out about 5 times. So they wanted to do an interview with me. Said, "Now you're going to test that car, and you bought the car from Dale. And when are you going to drive?" I said, "What do you mean? When you going to test the car? We'd like to watch you." I said, I don't know." He said, "Boy, Earnhardt's having a hard time out there today." He's spun out 5 times. I never told him, "Your dad would have killed me if he knew that." I said, "Yeah, I don't know." I said, "I'm a little intimidated. He can't get around. I might better leave that car alone." But I wanted to, and then I went to Rockingham. And Buddy and I were real good friends, and Buck had a driving experience at Rockingham. So I go down there, I called Buddy, and I said, "Hey, can Rodney Combs took a little wedge out of the car, and them cars are so tight because they don't want people to spin out, you know. And I like a loose race car. I didn't like to push at all. I want it free." So Buddy said, "I'll go with you down there." So I go to Buck Baker deal and get in his car, and Buddy drives me around. Buddy shows me the line. So then I scared Buddy Baker to death. He would not get back in a race car with me. He said, "You're an idiot, you're crazy." And I mean, I had him, we were rubbing the wall, and it was just so much fun. So I came back and I bought that car from your dad, and it was a pretty good little hot rod. Well, you know, I bought Darrell Waltrip's. He had an ASA car, all pro car, and 5 Busch cars, and I bought that. And I bought everything he had. And back in them days, we raced 6-cylinders.
I know, but why'd you want to buy all this?
I wanted to go racing. And Neil Bonnet was going to drive my car.
Well, you're just going to quit fishing?
No, I was on the side.
I mean, you're going to be both?
I was going to be
You're going to be
both.
Hank,
Yeah, I was
Hank
going to do
the
both.
great
Look how much stuff
outdoorsman
you're
and
in.
Hank the fisherman?
Look at all the stuff you're in right now. You're
I
going to talk to me about wearing a bunch of hats?
I know.
Yeah, you know exactly. So I was going to, so I bought all that, and Neil Bonnet was going to drive my car. And Neil had some sponsors. And then when James Finch car down it, and we were there. We were loaded up, ready to go. Neil was going to drive my Busch car in that race and so the reason Neil was going to do it, and the reason I really needed Neil, is because just like that steering box, I didn't know that. I needed somebody that had track experience that could get that car right to give me confidence. I had none of that. And so Neil wanted David to drive. So, yeah, his son, David Bonnet. So my deal with Neil was you drive 10 races and David drive 10 races, and then in 91 or whenever that was, there were only like 27 Busch races. So I was going to drive 6 or 7. So I went to Rockingham, and then that all fell apart. Every bit of that fell apart. So later, I decided I'll just run Rockingham myself. No experience. Well, I took my late model guys out there. We didn't know nothing. But I went and Buddy and I had gone and done in Buck Baker car. And so I called Buddy and I said, would you go with me to Rockingham? And so I rented the track. And then Felix Sabatas, they wanted Kyle Petty to come and test. So I shared with Kyle. Well, Kyle gets around Rockingham really good. He was really good. So I get Buddy and I take 3 race cars over there. I got a little 3/4 drop that I got from Darrell. It's a pretty good hot rod. And Buddy got in and he said, man, this thing's a rocket ship. Leave all those other cars. You need to run this car. We ran them all. But Buddy said, this is the car. This is the car. So we got that thing set up. I probably made 500 laps. I rented the track for 2 days. I just ran and ran and ran and ran. And so when we finally taped it off and put new tires, tires are everything at Rockingham. Taped it off and put new tires on it. And Mark Martin had sat on the pole in the 60 car the year before. And I'm 2/10 off of Mark's qualifying speed, his pole speed. I'm 2/10 off.
That's good.
And Buddy said, you'll make this race easy. And that's back when 70 cars would come, 36 provisional. So you had 50 cars trying to make, or 30 cars trying to make 6 spots.
Right.
I mean, it was tough.
Oh, yeah.
So I knew I had to be good. And I'm probably 4/10, 5/10 faster than 36 was the year before, and Goodyear brought the exact same tire back. So I'm good. So we go out there and practice, and I'm overwhelmed on all the cars. And there's some of them taped up making qualifying runs, and some of them and it's just, golly, man, I've never been in anything like that. Yeah. So, and Morgan Shepherd got mad at me. He was running the 15 car, Cheerwine. He got mad at me because he was taped up and I got in his way. Mm-hmm. So NASCAR called me in and he said, look, man, you got to stay out of these guys' way. They don't want to waste a set of tires, and you just kill their qualifying run when you get up in their lane. Give them the outside, give them the line, let them go. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. So now it's my turn. So they take me up, get out there, and I make a qualifying run, and I miss my mark on that second lap. So I'm mad at myself. I missed my mark. So you only really have 2 laps that you can really dive that thing in there deep and it stick, because those tires go away. I never experienced that before, because that wasn't the way it was in my late model car at Concord. I could get about 10 laps. Yeah. So now I'm going to make up for that bad lap. And man, I'm going to hit my marks, and I'm going to run a pole speed. And so when I got into one, boy, it didn't stick. And so I lost. So now I'm trying to make that up. Well, Steve Grissom is taped up, and he's making a qualifying run. And my guys, inexperienced guys, are hollering at me on the radio, get out of his way, get out of his way. Well, I'd already committed to go into 2 where I couldn't get out of his way. I mean, I needed every bit of that corner to get up against the wall. And they're screaming, get out of his way. So I tried to pull that car down and let Grissom go. And when I did, it wasn't good. And it cracked up my little toy. And the first guy in the infield care center was your dad. He said, boy, you better get your iron in back to Concord, get out. You go get, the car was torn up pretty bad.
Oh, I bet.
You go get skin up out here. He never would say you're going to get killed. He'd just say you're going to get skin up.
Did you run after that?
I went to Martinsville, and I took that car I bought from your dad, that Kenny Wallace car, and no one would believe me again. Inexperienced bunch of crew guys, and what happened is, and you couldn't tell it unless you jacked the whole car up, where the shock fit into the chassis broke loose, and man, you couldn't drive it. And so when I told them before I ever qualified, I said there's something wrong. So they jacked it up one at a time, and you couldn't tell. You had to jack it. It wasn't until we got back to the shop they jacked it up. The whole right side fell down. So the weld that held the shock together had come loose, and I pushed like a freight train, and I missed that race by about 3/10.
Yeah.
And I hate a pushing car.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, wow.
When you got done with all that stuff, did you go back to Concord?
I went to Concord
Play?
a little bit, and I'm going to tell you, the last Big Ten race I ran good for a while. And I came in, we have a mandatory pit stop. It's a 200 lap race, and you have a mandatory pit stop. And I came in the pit, and Billy was changing tires for me. And when I came in, my eyes met his eyes. And as a father, I thought, you selfish dog. That boy wants to be in this car more than anything in the world, and I'm driving this race car. I ain't doing this no more.
Yeah.
And when that race was over, that was the end of it. I didn't race anymore. I put it all in the Hank and Billy. Whatever they wanted to do, wherever they wanted, every dime I had.
Yeah. That's wild.
It is.
I think about that, like with my kids. Like I have spent my whole life being able to decide for me, do for me, choose for me. Then I met Amy, and then I had to learn what it was like to share a house, share time, share decisions. And that took some time, took some work. And then, but that is not the same adjustment with kids when at least from my experience, when my girls started, getting old enough to want something, to request something, to like to do this or do that or choose, you start thinking about how am I being selfish in this moment, but deciding for us what's about to happen. And so I don't know, I still race a little bit.
I know about that. Yeah. You've been going to Anderson's.
So I got 2 on my schedule this year. I'm doing 2 to 5 a year. And they're little late model races, and they're kind of, I downplay it. But when I go to them, I'm having fun. I like racing. I love it. It's in my blood.
There's something about stepping on that throttle and that adrenaline.
But there'll be a moment in the middle of the day where I'm standing there, not in the car, and it'll catch up with you, and you'll think, what the heck am I doing here? Why am I not where they are? Why am I doing this? And so I've had those thoughts. And then, and this is so silly and insignificant, but my wife went on a trip this week. So we've got a 5 and a 7-year-old. And up to this point, I have never been the sole one responsible for them for more than 24 or 48 hours.
Yeah.
My wife went on a trip for this week, and she comes home today. So I've had the kids Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and part of Thursday morning, getting them up, brushing teeth, getting them ready for school, dropping them off, picking them up, taking them to gymnastics, all the things, feeding them and everything, right? Getting them in bed. And it has went perfect. It has went as good as it can go. We've not had one moment where there was a disagreement. Somebody, didn't want to brush teeth or wasn't ready for bed. No, it's all been great. We play heck trying to get them. Every day when it's me and Amy, every day there's a stumble. But with them girls and just me, for whatever reason, they decided to give me some grace, and we've had an awesome week.
That's so cool.
But I learned in that experience right away, really quick. So I have hobbies. I still play video games. I still race. I still pedal this and that and the other. And for the last 7 years, Amy has told me I don't have hobbies. And she resents me a little bit because I can go do.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, man, I'm doing this and we're making some money here and this is paying for this and this. So I'm working, but it's fun work.
Yeah.
But she don't get to do those things.
Yeah.
And this week I really got to see with everything pulled away out of, all the, I got to see exactly her perspective, and I got to really understand what it really feels like to 100% commit yourself to nothing but that child And in this case, both our girls. And I was like, man, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. It is so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my gosh, like to not do nothing else. I still got a ways to go to figure out how to get this racing bug out of my system. And at 51 years old, I think I got a couple more good years left before I'm just wasting my time. But I'm not struggling with that, but I'm like, I'm that moment you had in that car, I have like little hints of that sometimes, and it's growing, right? And there's going to be a day where I'm going to go, you know what? I've done enough for me, and I'm going to do for them. I'm going to put everything into what they want to do.
I think the difference between girls and boys.
That's the thing I'm curious about is because I don't have sons, I have daughters. Their interests might not be things that I'm like 100% into, right? They like dance, gymnastics. None of them are really into sports. I've tried to get them to think about soccer and things like that. They're not really too interested in any kind of basketball, volleyball, whatever. It may come down the road. I would love to watch them in a competitive sport environment of some kind, but so far it's just princess dresses and makeup. But
that's cool. The difference between little boys, mom does an awesome job till these little boys get 10, 11 years old. Then they want to go race. They want to race go-karts. They want to go fishing. They want to go hunting. And mom's not good at that, And so I was 36 years old. I was at the absolute peak of my career. I was really on my game. And Hank Jr. had come to me, and there was a guy bullying him at school, and he was embarrassed about it. He didn't want to tell me about it. And he said, Dad, can you just stay home today and not go? Well, I was going to a boat show in Chicago, and I had already booked. And I said, nobody. He said, oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So I went and got in the car. And I'm not going to miss an obligation because I've got my sponsors are critical, and I never want to disappoint them because there's 500 other people in line to take them, So you want. But I got in the car and I started back out the driveway, and I ain't gonna do it. I'm gonna call and cancel. And I pulled back in the driveway, and he poured out his heart to me that day. We spent the whole day. We just rode around in the car, went in fields and looked for turkeys, and we just did things and. It was a wonderful day, and he opened up to me. And at that moment, I decided if I ever get myself in a position financially, if I could ever win the Classic again, that would set me career-wise to make enough money, I'm going to retire. So at the end of that year, I won the Classic. And I quit. I was 36 years old, and I walked away to come home to race go-karts. And later a late model car and all the crazy street stock car But that's what they wanted to do. I wasn't thinking that I was so selfish until that particular moment. And then when it hit me, how important it is to be with those kids, that's what I did. And I've invested heavy in them. And that's what your dad missed. You are so much like your dad. And when I realized you were exactly like your dad. I don't know if you'll remember this, but Goodyear and Hoosier was having a little battle, and they brought a tire to Charlotte. And I remember you and Adam Petty and Hank Jr. sitting over talking about, man, this is wild. This is scary. And you had qualified about 12th or something maybe. Hank Jr. had qualified about 18th, and I think Adam had qualified like 4th. And you said immediately, I'll tell you one thing, I ain't going out there and going wide open. I'm gonna take it easy. Hank Jr. said, yeah, he said, this is scary. This is crazy. And I remember you saying that, and I thought, man, that's good. Y'all take it easy, because I'm worried of the dad, because they were all over the place, man. Everybody's spinning out, and the 3 or 4 cars would hit the wall in practice. And that first lap, you went from 14th to 3rd to 2nd. I said, yep, there he is. Oh, I'm going to take it easy. You passing on the outside, hitting Humpy's bump sideways. I said, yep, there he goes. That's exactly what your daddy would have said and exactly what he did. when Ernie Irvin, I was with him up there when Ernie hit the wall in Michigan, and it was a scary thing. It was a very scary thing, and that tire was not reliable. And your dad said, it's wrong. This tire battle is causing problems. This tire battle's what killed Neil. This tire battle needs to stop. And he said, I ain't gonna be their test pilot. I ain't gonna go out there and kill myself. I don't care if I get lapped. I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
He's out there wide, stinking open at Michigan, going 200 miles an hour. I thought, what happened to I ain't gonna do this?
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, I remember one year when the Hoosier Goodyear thing was going on. I can't remember exactly what year this was, but we get to Charlotte, and the only two people on Goodyears are Dad and Dave Marcus. Dave had a Goodyear hat, he wore it all the time. He was as loyal to them as he could be. He was their test guy. He wasn't gonna ever jump ship. And teams have done all kinds of things between swapping back and forth depending on the speed in their car and the tire, every racetrack. But Dad stayed on his Goodyears. We get to Charlotte late in the year, and man, he's 30th in qualifying, which wasn't all that shocking. He just, sometimes he qualified good, but race starts and he's running in the back, just not fast. On the Goodyear is just a slow tire, and him and Dave Marcus is back there riding in the back, can't do nothing. And this, I think, is the same race that Neil and Harry Gant and all them boys blew right front tires and broke their legs and everything, hitting the wall. A bunch of people blew right front tires, but I was frustrated with Dad to be so stubborn but loyal, in the moment. But as when we, obviously get on the backside of that race and see all the people that had trouble in it, but it really made me appreciate him, even all the years later, to be so the most, arguably one of the most popular guys, one of the biggest stars. He wasn't going to get on that fast tire because he didn't feel like it was the right thing to do, because either it wasn't safe, but two, his loyalty to Goodyear and how they'd been such a great partner. And I don't know, man, it was, he was not going to turn his back on you. You know what I mean? Didn't you think that he was one of the most dependable, loyal, fiercely loyal guys? He's going to Charlotte Motor Speedway to race, knowing he's going to be on a tire that's going to be 25th at best.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then he give up that day in front of all his fans, his family, to keep his loyalty, right? And in the end, Hoosier, which is a great company, builds a great tire, they left the sport, and Goodyear was the one standing there to take care of everybody when that happened.
The tire battle was a bad deal. Rodney Orr and
it was tough.
Yeah, it caused some problem. So you see that elk up there? That White Mountain. Nobody could ever hunt White Mountain.
Why?
And
how come?
It was very pricey, and they had 30 members. It's 1 million acres of Apache Indian reservation. They had 30 members, and unless a member was willing to give up his spot for that year, that's the only way you could get in
Gotcha.
there. So it was way out of my price range. I mean, there's no way I would pay that kind of money to go up there and hunt. And so your dad and Richard Childers had done some things for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, so they gave your dad and Richard a hunt. And so that year, Dover Spring Race was rained out. So they were going to make it up in the fall, and it was on that date. So your dad calls me and he says, you want to go to White Mountain on the elk hunt? And I said, in my dreams. He said, no, really, do you want to go? I said, Dale, I'd die to go. He said, all right, you're going. You're going to go with Richard. I said, how am I going? He said, I got to race Dover and I can't go, so it's your elk hunt. So Richard and I went up there and elk hunted. And I killed that big elk and brought pictures back. And I had to come back. He said, the only thing you'll have to ride up there with Richard, you'll have to fly back to Dover and stay for the race on Sunday. So I'm just hanging around the holler, and Richard, he's over there looking at spark plugs. That's why for hours he's looking at spark plugs. So Shelvedine had been in there in the holler and met with your dad, and he came out cursing. And Richard said, whoa, what's wrong? He said, he wants me to change that gear. I don't want that gear. He don't need that gear. Everybody's running this gear, and I ain't gonna change it. And Richard said, whoa, what'd you tell him? He said, I told him I'd change it. He said, then you go back in there and either tell him you're not gonna change it or you go change it. So Shelvedine said, I'm gonna change it, but he's gonna learn. Fine. So I think your dad qualified 10th, and in about 6 or 8 laps, he's running 19th or so, and Shelvedine, of course, I'm listening to him. Shelvedine said, how about that gear? Earnhardt didn't say a word. Your dad didn't say a word. So in about 30 more laps, he's leading the race. He said, low gear works pretty good on these slick tires. Yeah. That's all he said. And he ended up winning the race, but he didn't really lay it on Kurt. He said, "So gear worked pretty good on these slick tires."
Yeah,
he was so far ahead of him.
He was. We were racing. I just got into the Cup Series, and we go to Indianapolis. And I mean, I ain't never been to Indy ever. This is my first trip to Indy, and we're out there at a test. Whole series is testing 30-some cars. And I'm out there running around, and I'm running some good laps. I'm up in the top 5 in the board. And Dad's down there around 10th, 15th. And I even got in his car and drove it a couple laps. And I climbed in his car, and I look on the dash, and there's a little timer that tells you the last lap time the car ran. And so I look at that, and I go, I'm going to go out there and run that or faster. So I go out in his car and I drive it, and I matched his lap time. I get out. I'm like, yeah, my car's fast. I can get in your car, run what you ran. I'm pretty good. And he gets in my car, and he goes out there and runs, and he's about the same speed as me, a little slower. He gets out and he goes, that thing ain't never going to work. I'm like, man, it's so much faster in your car. How can you say that? He's like, I'll see you. I'll be passing you before it's over with. I qualified 3rd, 2nd, something like that. He qualified 10th or 11th. Dropped the green flag. I'm hauling, but I'm running up there 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Really good, real happy. And his car, the characteristics of his car when I drove it at the test was you'd go in the corner and it'd roll over and pick the left front up and just roll way over. Had a lot of delta in it, movement. My car had a big old front sway bar, was locked down on the left front, and it was flat. You'd go in the corner and it didn't tilt or nothing. And he's like, that ain't gonna work. And I'm like, man, it's fast. I'm gonna leave it. And then I was like, your car drives like it's 20 years old. It's all rolled over. Ain't no way that's gonna work, especially in traffic. And so I'm out there 30 laps in the race running. I might have led a couple laps in the first 15 or so, but we're running great. Car starts getting tight, started losing a hold of the top 5, fall back to like 8th, sitting there running around 8th or 9th, pushing like crazy in the corner. Here he comes. Look in the mirror, and he drives right up to me and just goes right by me. Old car just all wallered over. And I'm like, how does he know?
How did he know?
Because like you could put the tires on him, and I could beat his car every single lap clear by 2/10. But he knew at lap 40 that I was going to be in trouble, and he was going to be the fast one. And the characteristics of the cars were so different. And the attributes that his car had were not favorable things. You didn't like the left front to be up in there. You didn't like the splitter or the valence to be way off the ground. But it kept turning. It didn't run fast at first, but it ran the same lap time over and over and over. And when my car got tight and I started pushing, as did most everybody else. His car was still turning. And I'm like, that's the kind of knowledge and experience, man, only a few people possess.
Yeah, but I mean, even experience, most people didn't gain the knowledge.
No, you would run so fast on the new tire. It was such a lure to, I ain't giving that up. Why would I change it? I'm fast. And he had enough like inner strength to go, yeah, I'm 2/10 off for right now, but I know in 40 laps I'm going to be where I need to be.
He would never tell me that. He would never explain that. It used to frustrate me so bad because I'm dying to learn. He would never, because he knew I couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
And he made me not able to explain it.
Yeah.
That's how,
yeah.
He had it
Yeah.
and he knew it, but he couldn't
explain.
break it down into terms that I could understand.
People always wonder, like, they don't ask me as much anymore because they know the answer, but they early in my career, they're like, what did your daddy teach you? They want to know, what did Dale Earnhardt teach you? What lessons in racing? I can't wait to hear this one because Dale Earnhardt has got to be telling some good lessons. He didn't say squat, We never talked about racing, and he'd never sit down and dissect a corner, or we never sit down and look at a race and watch film or go, man, what did you make that decision for? This is what you should have done. Yeah. We never did none of that.
Yeah.
The only time he ever told me how to drive a race car was at Bristol. And
yeah, he told you something else at Bristol too, didn't it? Didn't you bump him at Bristol?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We go to Bristol, and I'm out there, and Bristol's so different that I guess he sort of realized, man, I better step in here. And he got on the radio while I was driving the car. And I'm coming up off the corner, and you get in the gas, and you drive up off the corner, and you go down the straightaway, you pass the flag stand, and you drive into the corner, and you lift. And I'm like, I'm doing it. You drive that car as far into the corner as it'll go and still make the corner. And I'm not, I'm middle of the pack, maybe struggling worse than that. He gets on the radio and he goes, all right, do what I tell you to do. I was like, all right. I get to the flag stand. He goes, lift off the gas. I'm like, right here, there's a whole lot of straightaway left. I can go so much further. Why would I lift here?
But you listen.
I lifted and I rolled down into the corner. And as soon as it landed, he goes, get in the gas. Shoot, I was getting in the gas way around it. I'm like, getting the gas now? I'm just getting in the corner, right? Yeah. Why would I stand in the gas now? I stood in the gas, and that car goes boom right around the corner and popped up off of turn 2. And I got midway down the straightaway. He goes, lift. I'm like, He goes, get back on the gas. As soon as I got down in the corner, I could stand on the gas, and that car just hunkered down in the corner and wrapped around. I'm like, man, he took the throttle points where you lift and get on the gas. He took all of that and just shifted around the track. And I mean, it picked me way up. Like just that one thing. I'm sitting there going, man, this car's too tight. It needs this change. It needs that shock. It needs this. And I drove it differently and fixed everything. And I'm like, dang, I need this every week, Dad.
Yeah, come on.
Give me some more lessons.
Help me.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But we went, and we might have been the same weekend. I qualified ahead of him. And Elliott Sadler qualified on the inside of me in the Wood Brothers 21 car. We're 7th and 8th. Pretty good, pretty good job. And Dad qualified in 9th spot right behind Elliott. And so me and Elliott were friends. We always sought each other out. So we're standing there before the race talking. Dad comes up and goes, now 500 laps at Bristol, man. You boys better, y'all got to take your time. It's a long race, man. Don't be running too hard early. Just take your time.
Right, your first lap.
He's just like, telling us to be cool. Long race, you're going to tear your stuff up easy here. And we ran one lap, maybe one lap, not even one. He runs in the back of Elliott into turn 1, turned him sideways up into me. Me and Elliott's wrecked out of the race, destroyed. And I'm like, what happened to taking it easy?
Yeah.
And so I get my car fixed and I go back out on the racetrack and I'm mad.
Well, I know.
Oh, man. And, you get in that car and you're gritting your teeth. I'm out there driving this tore up race car. I'm way off the pace, struggling, trying to stay out of everybody's way. Everybody's mad at me because I'm slow and in the way. And I'm just like, And so here he comes, and he come on the inside of me, and going down the straightaway, I just turned left and drove the whole side of my car against his. And he got on the radio, told Richard Childress that I needed to not do that again if I knew what was good for me. But I'm like, man, you sat there and told me, take it easy, and he wrecked us both.
He couldn't help it. He couldn't, and you did the same thing in Charlotte when you said, I ain't going to run hard on these third. You couldn't help it.
Yeah.
You couldn't help it.
Yeah.
I mean, he couldn't help it.
Felt good.
Hey Outdoors family, we want to take a quick break from the podcast to tell you about our newsletter. Now, by signing up, you'll not only receive exclusive content, but you'll also get first-hand look at new merch drops and new merchandise from Hank Parker Productions, such as the classic spinnerbait and the pawpaw crankbait. It's completely free to join, so just go to hankparker.com, click on that newsletter, put in your email, and we'll welcome you into the Outdoors family. And with that, we're going to get back to the episode.
I was with him in Daytona when Kerry run his first dash, Goody's dash. Remember the little dash car?
Yeah.
Kerry run his first
I was
race.
there. Yeah.
And he'd get that run coming off a 4, and he'd try to dive under him on the apron and spill out.
Yeah.
And I was on top of the hauler, and your dad was up there, and he's giving Kerry a fit. I mean, a fit. But before that happened, in the twin 125s, he had... I don't remember what happened, but he ended up pitting or something happened, and he had dominated that race, just totally dominated. I mean, it was chased the 3 car. But something happened like with 2 laps to go, and he ends up like 12th. And I don't know how many cars within the twin 125, like 16 or something. You know, he's in the back. I mean, it's over. There ain't no chance. Well, he wins that twin 125. And he passed like 7 cars when they got the white flag on the front stretch. He passed like 7 cars at one time. And that just blowing my mind. How could that possibly happen? So he goes on and wins the twin 125. So we're all staying over there at Goose Creek where the airports and stuff at. And
all the houses had hangars.
And so I was at the house next door. I was with Hank Jones and your dad. And so I'm over there sitting on the porch. I said, you got to tell me how you did that. And he wouldn't. He wouldn't tell you nothing. I said, I ain't going to let you go. I'm going to aggravate you to death. How in the world did you pay? He said, well, let me tell you something. He said, you get on a car's quarter, and and sometimes you know how to take the air off him and gain the positive air, and you got him. And then you get 2 cars, and it's a little bit of a mystery because it's according to how this car is lined up on this car is where the positive air is going to be. So it's a little bit of a mystery. And he said, and this is where he was the master of all masters. He could feel that positive or negative air the minute he just broke behind you and stuck that much of his nose out.
Yeah.
And he said, now you get 5 or 6 cars, you don't know where the positive air. He said, you got to hunt it because you can't maneuver and manipulate the car in front of you to get the positive air. You don't know where it's at. Mm-hmm. He said, so I'm sitting there in line, knowing I got to go. I just saw the white flag. And he said, so I barely stuck my nose out. And he said, man, it was bad negative. So I knew it was good positive on the outside and said, I dove on the outside and said, I was gone. I said, that is crazy. Most people have got to get half the nose out there before they realize it.
You're in a bad spot.
Yeah. But how did he do that?
I don't know. I think that was, they used to say that he could see the air, and he understood by experience and just doing, and even in he raced. He practiced how he's going to race. A lot of guys get in the car and get in the car, go practice, and they go out there. Well, it's practice. We just make a couple laps, make sure everything's fine, no leaks, no smoke, nothing. Yeah, car's fast. It does a couple good things. I'm happy. Put a cover on it. But at Daytona and Talladega, he would practice with the same intensity that he was going to race with. Yeah. And he was always learning, sciencing out things, trying to understand how the air worked around the cars. They changed the intakes or the manifolds and the restrictor plates and they shorten or lengthen the spoilers or whatever. They're going to change some. I said, going to change how things work, and what worked last year might not work this year. And so he was always out there experiencing and trying things and note taking. And we talk about it every race all the time now. We call it side draft. And I think that I always use the analogy that when a car, to explain drafting to somebody, you would say, all right, I'm going to put this car on the racetrack, and while it goes around the track, it's making a wake in the air like a boat. And that wake starts at the nose of the car, whereas the wake on a boat's coming off the rear. This wake is created by the car splitting the air, and it comes off that car in a cone shape. And that air is very dense. The nose of that car is packing that air super dense, and it's wrapping around that car, coming down the sides. And if you can find little pockets of where it's less dense, and that's how you get up in there and side draft somebody and do the things that he would do, slingshot by them. And now when you get to a certain point, you need to get away from that car, because then now he could then side draft you.
Mm-hmm.
And do the same thing. That's why you would see Dad kind of sneak around their rear bumper and go down the side and then jump out here and get away from them. And he's kind of jumping that wake like a skier, water skiing, right? Hopping over the wake and getting out there in that nice glass. And so I always really use that analogy because that's what made the most sense to me, and that's how I viewed it. Viewed the air going around that lead car was like the wake of a boat. And I wanted to if I'm in the wake, I'm in the less dense air and I can move and make things happen. But as soon as
did you figure that out?
I watched him, right? So I watched him in the 80s, but really in the mid 90s. I really was
paying attention. Do you think he figured that out before anybody else?
Yes.
No doubt he did. Yeah,
yes,
I think that too.
He figured it out, but all the other drivers knew it, but they didn't use it as much. And they used it once, like they were going to have that in their pocket for that last lap move. But he did it every lap.
Every race.
All day.
Yeah.
Every corner, every chance. I'm going to side draft this car. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to use that. He was using the air all the time, where the other guys were like, well, that's just something I need to do to try to win on the last lap. He did it all day. And
he became more fine-tuned with it. He was better at it. So when they got down to that last lap, they didn't have the skill.
Yeah.
He knew.
He knew. And so I think that was the difference for me as well. So I watched him with my eye, standing on pit road or wherever I was at, running every race at Daytona, Talladega, over and over and over. And I'd see him get close to a car, pull away from a car, maneuver around a car. And I watched it and I go, he's doing that for a reason. I don't know what it is, but he's doing it for a reason. I don't know what the sensations are that he's feeling. I get behind a wheel of a race car and I start playing around with the cars around me, and I go, oh, no, that's what that is. Oh, man. Now all of those years of watching him do those things makes so much sense. And so it's fun. And so I started practicing like I was going to race. I'd go out there at Daytona. I remember the July Daytona race where we won in 2001. I'm out there practicing in that baseball car like crazy, pushing and bumping and carrying on. And Jeff Gordon's coming over going, why are you driving like that? You're driving like a madman in practice. It's just practice. And I'm like, I got to show all y'all that this is the best car. So when I pull out to make a move, you're going with me because you saw what this car could do in practice. And so I would, from the drop of the green flag, I'm doing everything I can using the air. And even in the 2000s, when I was racing, all the other drivers that I was competing with didn't always side draft all the time. I'd see them. I'd be out there racing and go, why didn't he side draft him? That would have been a good choice to do that right then. He could have held that position. I wonder why. Why didn't he do that? He just kind of let the guy pass him. I would have fought for that, you know? And what has happened though is where Dad was the only one doing it in his time. When I started racing, and I was doing it a lot, every single lap I could do it. My competitors started doing it more often, and now everybody does it.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's using the air at every race, every lap, every straightaway, every corner. It's a tool. It's something they take advantage
But
of.
you picked up on that quick from the time you was in the bush car. I mean, I watched it Talladega. You picked up on that really quick, and it just seemed natural.
Yeah, it did. For some reason, it did come easier.
That's that bloodline.
I just been watching him do it, and then when I got in the car, it just like clicked and made sense.
Yeah, but most people, if they've never driven a race car, they don't understand. It's all in the field. It's all in your hind end.
It's all in your ass,
seat.
and everything you're touching, your back, everything that's part of the car.
All them G4.
That's your finger. That's your. That's
so
how you feel.
It's like a good bird dog. It's the bloodline.
The
bloodline's got a lot to do with that. You know. I believe that. I mean, you are so much like your dad, and I love the fact that he would have loved to had the experience that you just had this past week. And you've never experienced this, but divorce does a lot of things. There's a lot of hard feelings. There's a lot of barriers, and mom instills this. And your dad didn't want to fool with that. He didn't want to deal with that. And unlike, a psychiatrist will tell you a lot of times that when you've got something so deep in you got to get some help. You got to let it out. You got to talk it. Big E never did any of that. He sucked it all in. Mm-hmm. And so there were layers of heartache, man. I went through that divorce, and I know the pain of heartache. And your dad experienced that, but he never let that out. I mean, he never talked that to anybody. He and I'd try to bring it up. No. That's a topic. So the kids were kind of part of that element. And his emotions and how he felt about you, he never could express that. So he never got to enjoy what you just got to enjoy with your kids. He would have loved to have done that. But once it got so far down the road, he didn't know how.
Right.
He didn't know how to do that. And so it's so awesome. I've heard you tell your little girls you love them. That's that same bloodline that normally doesn't do that is now doing that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with all that. I think that's the dominating thing that I wish I would have been able to had more of. When Dad passed away, we had spent the last 2.5 years sort of getting to where we wanted to be with each other. And it was, of course, I didn't know that it was going to end so suddenly, but I think, I am curious what it would be like to sit in a room watching him and my wife Amy interact and laugh and play. And I'm, I know that he was getting better at being that kind of a person and very well capable of being that kind of person. Yeah. And we would have had some incredible memories. But with that said, and I tell people this all the time, I got buddies that lose their dads. I lost mine early, and now I'm sort of at the age where my buddies are starting to go through these experiences, right? And I'll tell them that, there's little things that I did to sort of help myself accept the reality of the situation. But I feel so, I feel so lucky to have been able to know him, spent time with him. I got a real good look at him, comparable to some people.
Yeah, my dad died when I was 22, and you never get over it, but you hold on to the memories.
Oh yeah.
And that's every time he would drive that car over there, his truck over there, and put it up against your bedroom window inside the house and lay that horn down. Is saying I love you.
Yeah.
That was the only way
That's
he knew
right.
how.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let my kid.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
You
that's
know
you're
I
right.
do all
You're
that,
right.
didn't
Yeah.
I?
Well, I mean, that
I've been
was
in the truck several times.
Not until sitting right here did I really think that was him saying "I love you," but it probably was. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm not going to let my son throw his life away. And he had his template that he felt like you needed to be
Fit
under.
into,
And
yeah.
you were wild and very immature.
Yes.
You were
Super
really
duper, yeah.
immature. And the thing that was so hard is you had to grow up overnight.
Yeah.
When he died, man, it was all on you.
Yeah.
Everything, the weight of the world.
Yeah.
And so you had to start getting up. You had to start doing things that were you were so carefree. Y'all would go to, it drove me nuts. I had all my whole life money tied up in Hank Jr. trying to race, and where are y'all at a go-kart track in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
Racing and banging and like little kids.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
We're having fun.
Yeah, having fun. And I'm about to go crazy. What if you'd break your arm? Y'all are not out there going around little go-kart tracks. Y'all out there beating and banging.
Yeah.
And it drive me crazy. And all Hank Jr. do is horse laugh. Every time I try to, he did die laughing. And he said, man, we're having fun. I said, you were the ringleader. I mean, you were the, bring it on, guys. Let's go have fun.
Yeah.
That drive your dad crazy.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I know now that must have been really frustrating. I thought I had a million years in front of me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how fragile life was, how short it is. You're 20, 18, 17 years old. You think you've got a million opportunities to sit down and have a conversation or do what you're supposed to be doing. And you don't realize till you get older that, but at the same time, golly, I am so glad I goofed off. You know what I mean? I am so glad I got all that out of my system and I had fun and I ended up all right. And I love your family and I love your son, all three of them. I had me and Hank are like brothers. When we feel like we have some sort of a unique bond because of how close.
You do. He feels the same way.
Our birthdays are just a couple days apart.
Yeah.
I feel like that and he's a junior, and we just feel like we've had some similar experiences in life, and we look at each other and know that we both understand where we've been, right? When we've not been together.
That's special.
It is. And but I'll tell you, I went out to your place one time. I was 16, 17, had a S10 pickup truck. I'm going to come hang out with Hank, spending the weekend. I'm going to stay tonight at the house on the lake. And y'all lived up in Denver at this time. And I'm going up there and I'm excited and I'm pumped up. And I get there and Hank Jr.'s like, man, I'm got to go over and see this girl. He's got some girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And he's like, you going to hang out with Ben and Bill. So me and Ben and Bill raised heck. I mean, raised heck. Wide open. Open.
Yeah, I was at a bass tournament.
Oh, boy, you don't even want to know.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to know.
Oh, yeah.
But, and then, so like, I had a great connection with them too. I saw Ben, I ran into Ben on Duval Street in Key West out of nowhere. And it was like, hadn't missed a beat. You know what I mean? And I think Bill lives right over nearby where I'm at.
Yeah.
Where I'm at now. I saw him.
He's moved to North Wilkes-Barre. He just moved.
Did he?
Yeah, he was next door neighbors with Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
he was
right.
right there by Jeffrey. Yeah.
But I talk to him every now and then. We don't talk enough. We don't get together enough.
Yeah, that's the way life is. It's so busy, so busy.
But I couldn't leave here without telling y'all how influential your family's been for me, your sons, you. There's, when I lost Dad, even though I don't talk to you all the time, there's people like you, Mike Helton, Rick Hendrick. There's individuals that I know that if I don't do right, I'm going to hear from you.
Oh, yeah. We got straightened out.
That's right. And so like, you don't even do anything. You haven't even done anything, and you've influenced the decisions I make and the person I want to be. And to hear from you, you know my dad as well as anyone. You would know exactly what he would think about who I am today, you know? And so I want to make sure that what that person is somebody that you feel like he would appreciate.
He would be so proud.
Yeah. And so, well, you know, we don't spend a lot of time together, but you're just knowing you and knowing your connection with him and the connection I have with Hank Jr. It's influenced me, and it's been a positive rudder.
Now, man, I appreciate that so much. And I wanted to give you some advice about your racing and going to Anderson. I watched, and you're a very successful business person, and you're very buttoned up, and you run a tight ship. I watched your dad being a carefree, happy, love the outdoors, relaxed, hang out all day, would sit on the porch over there at the house and go to the Bantam Chef and get a hamburger or whatever and just hang out all day before cell phones, and just, it was our day and we'd spend it. And then he started making more and more money, and NASCAR grew. NASCAR wasn't that big a deal in 1979. NASCAR exploded and it became America's sport. And your dad became the flagship. I mean, he's the man. And he started making a lot of money. Then he started DEI. When he and I went to the Pelon Seal the last time, Paul Andrews, they were having all kind of negotiations. John Andretti had ran the one car, and they didn't know if Steve Park was coming back, and your dad is on that satellite phone, and we're sitting there trying to enjoy sitting by the campfire. And I finally told him, I said, let me tell you something, Earnhardt. You ain't running your money. Your money's running you. And this took the fun out of your life. And you don't give Big E much advice. And so I'm waiting on that rebuttal to come back with some 4-letter words or throwing the phone at me. And he looked at me and he said, that's the truth. He said, that's the dang truth. I said, buddy, we used to come out here and listen to the coyotes howl and sit by this fire, and that was the most important. Now he didn't have a cell phone. He had a satellite phone because he couldn't afford to miss a phone call. And I said, it's ruining your hunt. That's the truth. Don't get there. Yeah. Go to Anderson. Go racing.
All right.
Because all that money, it ain't worth it. It'll rob you of your life. And your money will end up running you instead of, don't let that happen. Keep your priorities on your family. Keep your priorities on God. Keep your priorities on the family, and have fun.
All right.
You like having fun.
I can do that.
And you're good at it.
Yeah.
Don't let it overtake you. If I was just hoping so much that in the fourth quarter of your dad's life, he could have got back to where he was in the second quarter. Because the third quarter, man, he got caught up in all that.
Yeah, I know. It's easy to do. I feel, I got done racing and I thought, man, I'm gonna retire, and the PSAs and the little deals and side deals and hustle and all that's going to float away and fade, and
it gets worse.
It gets worse. I got busier when I got out of the race car. I got busier, and I never said no. I thought, I got to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know how long this will. Yeah. I don't know how long this will keep going. I got to do that and that and that and that. We'll just pile it all up. And in the last probably 2 or 3 years, I've been trying to find some things to say no to, and I've been trying to find the confidence, because my close inner circle tells me that my brain works pretty strange about money, finances. I look at tuition and I go, well, tuition is X, so I'm going to go do a thing and get X, and that's paid for that.
Offset that.
I'm going to pay for that.
Your daddy.
This costs this, so I'm going to go find this thing to pay for this. Well, why are you doing that? Well, because it pays for this. And they're like, no,
The
it
Earnhardts will
don't.
go to Bristol and do this cards to
Yeah.
pay deer lease.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I know. They're
That's
like,
exactly what he thought.
I know, I do too.
That is crazy.
It is crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That's exactly how he thought.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I've incurred this charge because we have something we had to, something that we got to do for our kids or our family or whatever. So let me go find this thing to pay for it. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's not how it works. I got to figure that out.
Yeah.
I'm scared. I'm scared to leave that thing on the table,
Yeah.
that opportunity on the table.
He was exact. And that's what caught him. And that's why he got in that mess. That's why he didn't get in a mess. He was flourishing. And by the judging of the world, they'd say, man, he was at his peak. But no, he wasn't at his peak. He was in his peak at the second quarter when he was living on Lake Norman, and he just had enough money to kind of do a few things that he wanted.
Yeah.
When it got excess money, and he had all this responsibility, and the fun went out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he was a businessman.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get away from it. One time he was telling me about this deal. He said, Parker, I got this deal. We're going to make a lot of money. I said, no, I don't want it. Are you crazy? Now I'm bringing to you an opportunity to make a lot of, why would you say no? I said, I don't have the time. If I get up in the morning, I want to go fishing, I'm going fishing. I'm not going to get up in the morning and go to a meeting. I'm not going to go to a photo shoot. I'm going fishing. Are you crazy? How much money you got? I ain't got any money. I don't have any money. But I tell you what I got you don't have. He said, no, I doubt that. Because he had everything. I said, no, I got something you don't have. He said, what? I said, enough. Boy, he didn't know how to process that. I got enough.
Yeah.
I don't want any more. I want my time. I want to be able to take 3 solid weeks and hunt from daylight to dark every day. And I'm not going to do anything but call home.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't do that. Watch me. I did it all the time.
Yeah.
It drove him crazy. He didn't know how you do that. He couldn't figure it out. He couldn't let go.
Yeah.
And it ended up, but I was hoping so much that in the fourth quarter, man, we could go hunt.
Yeah.
And we could go and do things. We didn't get there.
Yeah.
We didn't get there. He left at the end of the third quarter.
Yeah.
And I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. But I love him. I hold on to the memories. He'd be so incredibly proud of you.
Thank you.
He'd be so incredible. And I'm going to tell you, the way you ran your first year in the Cup Series blows my mind. Do you ever think about that? Was so awesome.
Well, half the year, the last half was just as bad as the first half was good. But you know how it is.
Man, you came out of the chute.
We came out of the chute quick, won some races, but the second half of the year was a struggle. But 04 was a good year.
Yeah.
There's ups and downs.
I hate that you and Tony Jr. and all that. That was such great chemistry and wonderful relationship. And it seemed like to Richard Childers right now, he's got his grandson racing, he's got everything. But when that team parted, the Flying Aces,
Yeah.
and Dale's gone, it doesn't matter. It's not the same.
Yeah.
And when your team, it wasn't the same.
No. Yeah.
It wasn't the same.
Yeah. Tony Jr. is my cousin. Our mothers are sisters. Dad and Tony Sr. Were best friends. There was a bunch of trust that you can't replicate in most friendships. And I think I can speak for me. Tony Jr. and Tony Sr., I can't really speak for them, but I got to where I thought I knew better. And I thought, man, I wonder if I can do better with something else. I've done this with them. Maybe if I go over here, I can do even better. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody over here that knows more. I don't know, And that was a big mistake. And I had not known what it was like to be with somebody that didn't believe in you. Tony Jr. and Tony Sr. believed in me, and they cared about me.
They protected
you. They protected me. They loved me.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't know them. When I left that, I didn't know what I was leaving or walking away from. And I got over here and got around to some people that, we weren't blood. didn't know that they believed in me all that much, my ability, and man, it was a rude awakening. We ended up going back to Tony Jr. and basically pleading for forgiveness.
Yeah.
I went back to him. We were in Talladega in 2005 at the back end of the year, and I walked up to him, and we hadn't talked all year. Been competing against each other, mad. And I walked up to him, and I was like, man, you ever think about getting back together? He's like, I didn't know what he's going to say.
Yeah.
But I put it out there.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, all the time. I was like, man, I sure would like that. I was like, I messed up.
That was big.
And he was like, I'd like it too. I said, well, why don't we try to do that? Why don't we try to work toward that and get back together next year? But, we tried, and we had a couple more good years together, and him and Tony Sr. ended up coming working at Junior Motorsports. And I talked to Tony Sr. and Tony Jr. quite a bit.
That's awesome. Good.
And yeah, we still communicate, tell each other we love each other. And I've shared as much as I could on my own podcast and to them personally what responsibility I feel for how we had a really good thing going.
But for you to walk up and apologize, Earnhardt's don't apologize.
Yeah. Well, I'm different. Like mine, I got a lot of Brenda G in me as well.
Yeah.
My mom, Dad and her were completely different people, and I don't know. I like to think that I have some of my dad's attributes and personality traits, but not all of them. I don't know if I want all of them.
Yeah. He and I had a falling out over Hank Jones, and when he hired, when he let Hank Jones go,
yeah,
it was devastating. I thought Hank was going to take his own life. I was so worried about Hank, and I was trying to fix it. And your dad got mad at me because I was sticking my nose into his business, but it wasn't his business. And he and I had a falling out, and he left the camp. I mean, they pulled out in the middle of the night and left because it got so intense.
Damn.
But he told me, he said, let me tell you something, Parker, that ain't none of your business. I said, oh yeah, that's a lot of my business. Hank Jones is a great friend of mine. You're a great friend of mine, and I'm trying to help friends. I don't care about the money. I have nothing to do with it. It's not my business, but my friends are my business. And I said, he said, keep your nose out of the business. He put his hands on me. Don't put your hands on me.
No
I should have never said that. I got really angry. And so he left. And,
I didn't know this happened.
Huh?
I didn't know this happened.
Oh, yeah, it was bad. It was bad. So I was racing in the Busch Series then, and that happened in December. So in February, I was in Daytona, and I was waiting. David Bonnet was driving my car. And was waiting on NASCAR was in inspection, and they had a problem with some of the template deal, and so I was trying to negotiate, how difficult that is, and as a car owner. And so Richard came to me and said, hey, Dale wants to talk to you. He really wants to talk to you. And I said, Richard, I love you, but if Dale wants to talk to me, he can come get me himself. He said, Hank, you know how he is down here. He's like Elvis. He can't get out of that holler. If he walks across this, he said, it'd be like the pipe. And I said, well, I hate all that, but it is what it is. And if he wants to talk to me, he'll have to come get me himself. So we sat there and finished the inspection. I looked, and here come a sea of people in Earnhardt signing, Parker! So I went with him to the holler, and this is where I was wrong. He said, you're right. You're trying to help two friends. And he said, I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I said, whoa. Stupid on me. I said, whoa. Dale Earnhardt's apologizing? I should have never said that. I should have went up, hugged him, and said, man, it's over. But I didn't. Stupid. I say, I'm pig-headed too.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, Dale Earnhardt's apologizing. He said, I need you to forgive me. I said, I do. But I didn't. Yeah. And I didn't do my part. He did his part. That was big for him. Yeah. And I didn't do my part. And it wasn't until probably a year before he died, maybe 2 years. 2 years or so before he died, I went through a divorce. He called me every day. Me every day.
Really?
He's busy. Man, he's got stuff going on.
Yeah.
He called me from the racetrack. He called me, hey, come over here, I'll show you something. Hey, old Michigan, why don't you come over here and look at him? Hey, I found his shed. Hey, why don't you come, let's go shed hunt. He never said, hey, Hank, I know what you're going through. I'm praying for you. I love you. No. He said, I love you by come over here and let's go shed hunting. Just like he did by telling you he loved you by blowing the horn at your window. That's what he knew.
Yeah.
But I knew him. And I knew every time that phone rang and it was Dale Earnhardt, he's calling to tell me he loved me. He's calling to tell me, hey, I'm your friend. I'm here with you. I know you're going through a hard time, and I'm here with you.
Dang.
And everything changed. That's when he and I became back. And so I'd never gone to Silver City with him. And I had just gone through divorce. I was in the middle of all that racing expense. I was upside down and millions of dollars in debt. And he said, don't you go elk hunting with me? I said, I ain't got the money to go elk hunting. He said, ain't gonna cost you nothing. He said, I'm gonna fly you out there. He said, it ain't gonna cost you nothing. Why don't you come go with me? So that's when I moved my sleeping bag beside of his sleeping bag. Mm-hmm. And we laid in that tent all those nights in the middle of the mountains, in the middle of nowhere, and out of Silver City, New Mexico, and talked about life. And he told me then, he said, the biggest mistake I ever made, he said, I had Burger King and Coca-Cola. I should have put Dale Jr. in that car. I should have never put him in. He's got all them bud girls and all this. He said, I should never put him in that.
Yeah.
A big mistake.
Yeah.
What he was saying is, I love my son.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying. And he said, I should have never done that. He said, I regret that.
Yeah.
And he also told me, and this will blow your mind, he said, I said, what about all your races? What's your big? He said, well, he said, in Bristol, when I spun Labonte, if I had it to do over, I'd have rather run second. I said, what?
Dang, really?
Yeah. He said, if I had that race to do over again, I'd have run second.
He said that.
He said that. He said, I hate that. He said, I spun Labonte, and he said, Terry's been out here. Terry's been in this tent where we're sitting. And he said, he won't even talk to me now. He said, but if I had that one to do over, that's one. He said, if I had that one to do over, I'd run second.
I bet that. I wonder if Terry knows that. It'd be good for Terry.
Yeah, I need to tell him. He said, yeah, if I had to. And then one time we were somewhere, and boy, they booed him. Golly, they booed him. I don't remember where we were. Might have been North Wilkesboro. And there was as many boos as there were cheers. And he come over, and we were going fishing the next day. And he come over and stood beside me. And I said, does that bother you? He didn't answer me. And I won't say the driver's name, but it was another driver goes up there, and the crowd goes, he said, now that bothers me. He said, that one bothered me. He said, I don't care if they booing or cheering, as long as they know I'm here.
Yeah. Damn.
Well, man, I've taken up your whole day, and I can't tell you how much I love you, and I appreciate you coming on. And I know that's some big trouble for you, and I appreciate it, son.
Well, I hadn't been down this way in a long time. I was glad you asked me to come do it. I'd watched some of the work you've been doing, watched your show several times. I like the content. I love that you're out there active, talking, telling stories. And there's a lot of people that admire you, and I'm one of them. And so it's great to be able to see you out there doing stuff and still going. Got to see some beautiful country driving in here, just amazing. So thanks. It's been a treat.
Well, I appreciate it. I will say this. I never, ever wanted to use my friendship with Dale Earnhardt to leverage popularity. And now you can't pick up and open up Facebook without seeing a picture of me and Dale, your dad, together. And all of that happened since this documentary.
Yeah.
And I went 20 years.
Yeah.
With never trying to market that.
I know.
And so now it's just everywhere. And I never intended that.
It's fine.
Yeah, but I never. The reason I did the documentary is because Hank Jr. will go and talk to kids about the Lord. Mm-hmm. And he'll talk about Dale Earnhardt. And he said, Dad, these kids don't know who Dale Earnhardt is.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so when this documentary opportunity came along, you know, I spent a lot of my time. I didn't make a penny. I didn't charge a penny, didn't want a penny. I sacrificed a lot of days, as you well know you did as well, for nothing.
Yeah.
But I did it because he's too big of a person to let his memory die.
Yeah.
And I didn't want any part of letting his memory die.
Yeah.
And that's why I told Donnie Reeves I wanted Donnie so much to be a part of it. And he said, well, what is the deal? I said, it's about telling a story about our friend who is a hero to the world that everybody should know who he is.
Yeah.
And that's why I did it.
Yeah.
So now, every time you look around, it's a picture of me and your dad together or this or that. I never intended to try to gain.
You don't have to worry about that.
Well, I want you to know that.
No. You don't have to worry about that. So you opening up and being willing. So like, I agree with you. I wish Donnie would tell and share some of his experiences around Dad, because that's a great point. There's a lot of people that don't know who Dale Earnhardt is that should or could or might be interested. And who better to tell those stories than you, Donnie, the people that spent all those years with him in those intimate moments. You added so much truth and authenticity and credibility to that piece. And that's all that piece was about, was like, how can we get this right and do this better than it's ever been done before? Or because I told them when they came to me to make the project, they said, we want to do this. I said, there's already a Dale documentary. Ryan McGee wrote it. Nobody's going to do anything better than that. That's it. When me and Amy got together and I decided that I was going to spend the rest of my life with her, I said, you won't never meet my dad, but we're going to watch this thing. This is him. And I said, if you can't top this, we're wasting our time. I'm not interested. But if you can, let's go do it. And so like you coming out with real genuine stories about him that I hadn't even heard, got really down into the core of this guy better than we'd ever heard before. We got to hear about the real soul of who he was, and because gosh, I mean, we know all the statistics, we've watched all the races, we know about the persona, but we don't really know about what he was like in that tent that night in New Mexico. And nobody will know unless somebody tells that story. And so I love Donnie, and he come on my show and did my podcast, but I appreciate his loyalty to Teresa and Dad and the legacy, and I appreciate that. And I understand it, and that's fine. But you did a good thing, and I love the fact that if it's somehow associated and reconnected that for people. Right? If they think Dale Earnhardt and think about you, or think about you and think Dale Earnhardt, because you two were so similar and y'all were so good together as friends.
Yeah. Now, I just wanted you to know, I'm not doing that for gain, to try to gain notoriety.
I would have never thought that.
Coattail.
I would have never considered that.
Yeah.
We're two families that we share a very special bond.
The one thing that I learned more from that documentary that really, really inspired me is Kelly.
Yeah.
How much she loves you.
She kicked butt.
And hey.
Yeah.
I talked to Johnny Morris the other day with Bass Pro, and Johnny and I were talking, and I told him that we were going to do a podcast. He said, Kelly coming? I said, I don't know.
You got to get her in here.
She's one of my favorite people in the whole world.
Yeah.
So I need to get her on the podcast. I'd love to do that.
She should be sitting in this chair next.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah. Because she has a very she had a more genuine connection with Dad. They are very very similar. Yeah. And I think y'all would have a lot of fun.
The only race I ever won in my life at Concord, she
was street stock racing.
I had to lap her. She said, my dad never asked me anything about where I finished. Did you finish on the lead lap? And so she was killing me. I was trying to get around her. Jack Spraggs was behind me, and I was trying everywhere in the world to get around her because I knew I was going to lose the race. And but I wouldn't spin her out. Anybody else, I'd have put them in the wall. Boy, I got to go,
Yeah.
But I didn't. But I finally did. I did lap her, and she knew she had held me up. She was a good little race car driver.
Yeah.
She really was.
Yeah.
And she came up after the race and said, I know I was holding you up, but I wanted to finish on the lead lap. I said, well, I would have let you if I could have, but I couldn't. I had to go. But that's the only race I ever won.
Yeah.
And I lapped her on about 3 laps to go.
Goodness. Yeah. Yeah. She'd have a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Oh,
yeah. Well, I really do appreciate you coming, and it's been great. And I hope, I'm going to tell you, this guy's a real deal. And I'm so proud of what he's done and where he's come from to get to where he is. It's pretty amazing story.
A long road. Yeah.
Yeah, here it is.
Thank you, Hank.
Thank you, my buddy.
Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.